steel bands with cold chisels and just file them to shape, and they come out looking just the same. Let me get the other one out. These three are probably Pit River Shasta, Achimau, Yatsugui.
And they have 3 feathers on them too.
Yeah, most of them do. Most all of them do. A lot of the rest of these are out of Northern California. They'd be either Hoopa, Yurok, or Karuk. And yeah, this. I mean, those actually have original stone points on them. So.
Wow, yeah. I don't think I've even seen that.
Well, you don't see them a lot. Let's see. This one here is that's Washoe Paiute. That was given to me by a guy who had collected that stuff. This one came off the Columbia River that he thinks he gave me that, probably down near the lower Columbia. And it's most of these are four-shafted, not all of them, but a lot of them are. There's a story that goes with this one. I got to look at a bunch of arrows that were collected off of the Columbia River in the Wilkes expedition, 1841, wow. and I took pictures of them. I went back to the Peabody. That's where they were, and they had a whole bunch of them. And I've got photos in my notebook I can show you of the same arrows. And I got to look at it. I've got all these good photos of Chinook arrows collected on the Wilkes expedition, and they all had black four shafts, most of them, and points so tiny you could lay them on your thumbnail. What do those look like? Bird points. Yeah. They were making in steel what they had been making in stone. So I showed this to some friends and said, oh, this is cool. The back end was broke. And a friend of mine was looking at this one day, and he said, oh, there's writing on this. And I said, what? Goodness. It's very hard to see, but I was having to look at it for a long, long time. Finally,
yeah, I could see.
It says Columbia River 1820. This thing dates to the fur trade, and I'd give anything to know what happened at the back end of the arrow. But John McLaughlin was at Fort Vancouver when that was collected. So it was a big deal.
Thank you. Yeah, we just walked back in time for sure.
So I've got some replicas of what this looks like. So anyway, these are California arrows. Here's an interesting one. And here's the deal: a lot of these are four shafted. You know, so in this one I actually was able to work at this. You can actually see. Well, you could pick your teeth with that at dinner, but this is probably Syringa, and they would. Here's the thing: you know all those long little skinny drills everybody finds. Okay, that look kind of like that. Yeah, those are the reamers for making the hole. Oh my! Yeah, you do it carefully, and you follow the pith like a pilot hole.
And how long would it take to make one of those arrows? Like
these are labor intensive because I made a lot of them. Yeah. And of course, when they could, they started putting steel on them. That's probably it's either Hoopa, Yurok, or Karuk. Probably one of those. Could even be one of the Shastans from further up the Klamath River. A lot of that stuff's pretty common because all those people got to stay in their own territory. They didn't move them somewhere else. But I mean, I've never
all my life I've never seen that.
And see those little rings?
Yeah.
You know what that is?
From more sinew?
No, that's horse. They were polishing with horsetail rush. Oh. All right. And horsetail rush has all those little.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So what they would do is lay that on there and spin it. And it carves those little machine-like grooves, so when you attach your sinew, it tends to stick better. And that's a trait that you see on all the California arrows from that lower Klamath River. They all have horsetail rush tracks on them. Wow! So there it is there, and if you look, you can see it. They did the whole foreshaft that way, and if you look at the back end, you can see those fine little rings. So when you see that, it's real diagnostic of okay, it's from this region, and they were using that for the final sandpaper on their shafts. So, anyway,
that's pretty amazing.
So yeah, I'm gonna ask a stupid question.
There are no stupid questions.
Maybe you have like a Hudson Bay coin. Maybe you have a
I don't. have
Phoenix button and a Lewis and Clark medal. And
No.
I mean, what I'm seeing here is pretty elite
This is
stuff.
cooler than that stuff.
All right. Well,
But wait, there's more. So
Yeah, I was expecting.
this is my interpretation. These are my copies of. This one doesn't go in there. Of arrows that I've seen of real ones, and I made them exactly as close as I could to the actual ones. And so there's one in the Peabody Museum that's Wintu that looks like that. So issue points, Wintu points when they're all put together, and that's how long the fletch was, and that's exactly how it looked.
really,
Yeah, and that's all.
what a beautiful
ochre and
like a one day to make one arrow.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I make these for people, I usually sell them for 100, 120, 125, depending on what they are.
That.
But they're a lot of work. So that's a Wintu replica.
But it's my art training.
Oh, here's one of my favorites. There are a number of these found up near Fossil, and they had little bone points that went into hardwood points that went into a foreshaft that went into a shaft made of cedar. They were that elaborate. This is an exact copy of one. That is even an exact copy of the crest and the length of the fletch. So these would have been the Upper Columbia River people that were making these. And I don't know what they were shooting with these, but they weren't bunnies. But I've got some originals at home that are really frail that were given to me. That, well, I bought them, but they came out of an estate. All we know is they were in a kid's shoebox that said Redmond, Oregon on them, but they came off the plateau somewhere, because this is classic Columbia River style stuff. This isn't Paiute stuff. And there were several of these little bone points in that batch of stuff. I would have given anything to see what the rest of it looked like. A friend of mine was looking around in a cave near Clarno, and he's pulling apart a pack rat nest. This was a copy of what he found. And this was, yeah, and this was clumped onto the bottom of a pack rat nest, but it's the hardwood. It was opened up in the front for a bone or stone point, and it was tanged like that for going into a foreshaft, and it was painted that way, black on the outside, red on the inside. That's kind of how they painted their canoes on the Columbia,
sure,
black on the outside, northwest coast. So,
And their combs and everything.
yeah, so I'd seen this, but when these showed up, I thought, oh, there's the same style. Very, very darn rare. It's really very uncommon to find anything like that. The most, like that Columbia River point, or that Columbia River arrow, that's probably how the old ones looked, with the little points, which were that size.
Okay, I've got to get a picture of this.
Here, I'll hold it
This
for you.
is so cool. Don't drop that.
But that's made out of cedar. It's got a flared knock. That one's based on photos I took at the Peabody Museum. But then I put a regular little point on it. I could have put a little steel one on it. I thought, no, I want to put a. That's real typical of what you
That
found.
little
on the
bird bone on my jacket was made by Jim Riggs.
Oh,
by the way.
right. Oh, wow. Really?
Has a trace of Jim Riggs' DNA. It's probably a chicken bone.
Yeah, we miss him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that point is just so cool. Where'd it go?
Oh, sorry. I was raising up the fletch. You were trying to get the point.
So I've seen a lot of Northern California stuff, some Oregon stuff. Oregon stuff is kind of rare. hard to find it.
And you made that.
I've made all this stuff. Here's a cool one. This is a replica of a
I do the cheapy
fragment. Came out of
Look at the length.
yeah, came out of Catlow Cave, and we got to looking at it. They were painted solid red, and this knock.
It's an inset.
Okay, this was actually elderberry. So then we found these knocks in the collection that look like this. And we said, oh, they were making these to poke down into the pith to form the knock.
Oh, and you would swear that maybe is an arrowhead at the same time.
Yeah, but that's what those were. And then there was an arrow in there that was broken. It didn't match. I think part of it was missing. But the front end of it of another one looked like this. It had these rings on it, and it had a greasewood foreshaft in it. It didn't have the point on it, but it would have been probably a little northern side notch, desert side notch, maybe smeared with red paint. So what were they shooting out in this country, Catlow Valley? Probably that. Or
It's a thick shaft.
yeah, well, it's elderberry. It had to be kind of a little heavier.
Yeah.
This is a copy of a broken one that came out of Roaring Springs Cave. And that is exactly the length of
The feather?
the fletch, and that's exactly the color of the crest.
Wow.
I mean, very snazzy.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have probably had
Look at that.
a hardwood foreshaft.
Yeah.
I've seen these spiraled like that. So that little point that's made out of that Harney mud shirt that I've been seeing over there shipping. So it's right
I put
out of
my
this.
camera away, but I gotta get
There you
another
go.
photo of that if you want to hold both of those next to each
But
other.
wait, there's more. Came from a lava tube cave east of Bend, Oregon.
But look at the length of it.
That's the length of the original. In fact, I had to really hunt to find a piece of Phragmites that was exactly like the same. So it's painted like this. It had a fine spiral of red ochre. I could tell it was they made the joint, the knock right at the joint. The fletch is speculative. This is the right length. But I did see an actual cut feather that came out of a little dry cave on private ground that was dug up many, many years ago. And you can actually see the feather's kind of trashed. There's sections missing, but you can see exactly how they cut it. And it was preserved. The front end of this is speculative, but it was probably greasewood.
Look at the length of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just sit there and hide in your little blind. And it probably had a little, either a rose spring or a late desert side notch point. It pitched in,
Can
sinew.
you hold all three of those?
And that is McKay Butte Gray Obsidian, which is so.
Hey, be quiet.
That's what you figured.
What's the reason?
Are you gonna be around for a while?
I'm gonna probably go home Friday because
Okay, good. My friend's out digging. He's trying to make arrows. Love to see your stuff. That's fun. I got one of them.
the points and all that are cool, but I want to know what's their archery stuff look like. That's cool. That's the thing that floats my boat. Like arrowheads, I've seen millions of arrowheads. What do the arrows look like? What do the bows look like? How did they use that stuff?
Yeah. I always figured they were short, small, wide, but those arrows look something different.
No, they're usually pretty nice and very well made. This is a copy of one that was down in the Fayetteville Museum. It came from a family collection in Nevada. And it's Northern Paiute, and they had a real twisted helix fletch on it.
Wow.
Phragmites king grass.
This is lighter. This is lighter than an arrow nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
But look at the spin on it.
Phragmites king grass isn't that heavy.
It's pretty light, but but it's strong because the Apaches made arrows out of it that were, I don't have any examples what their stuff looked like, but they were shooting them off of really strong sinew
Yeah,
arrows.
that comes from that diameter, you know.
It's
It's the diameter that gives it all its strength.
yeah.
I bet you that's a high spine shaft right
Because the
there.
fibers are all running straight down it rather than
Mm-hmm.
sideways.
Yeah, and they're
That's
far
what,
apart from each other.
Yeah.
This is a copy of one that came from Lava Bed National Monument. It's probably Modoc, but I've seen Pitt River Shasta.
But look at the colors on here. No one in their
Well-
right mind would ever think or do that.
But these are, let's see, these are all copies of originals. I mean, as close as I can make to exactly what the originals look like, these are copies of specific exact arrows, not just, well, I'll just make one and do da da da. These are copies of ones I've seen
In museums.
or where they're in private collections or whatever. So it's not something I'm making up, essentially.
So another goofy thing is how many people have stuff like this? Like nobody.
Oh, probably not too many.
What a treat.
I'll show you this real quick, and then I'll look at the pictures.
I'm hoping you brought that bow with the incised triangles on it. The one that gets wider toward the tips and it has the
Yeah, I have
incised.
it. I do. That's Chinook.
I love that bow, Steve.
Yeah.
That thing is the best thing I've ever seen.
did
Especially because
Ishi's-
it's out of my
What
area.
did Ishi's
Oh, sweetheart. Look at that.
stuff look like? That's what they look like. And these are what the arrows look like out of grizzly bear's hiding place. They're made out of window pane glass. And I've got the bow. I'll dig it out in a minute. I've shot 2 deer with my issue clip. I've actually got the fragments of the 1 point and the 4 shaft. There's a little spike. He was like, from here to the other side of the truck. I mean, he's like 10 feet away, if that.
Here's another funny statement, maybe, but maybe not, right? When you look at these points, you're gonna go, well, duh, the arrow's the same mindset. You know, they're
Yeah.
spectacular.
But that's how they were made. I mean, when you look at Ishi's stuff,
Yeah.
how he made it, I mean, they were just. But when he went to the museum, he started using commercial paints and commercial dowels, and he would make field points by taking a piece of tubing or part of an umbrella tubing and sawing grooves in it and then pounding it over, which made target points.
Wow.
That's how that's made.
So that's an Ishi target point.
So that's an Ishi target point. So what he made when he was in the wild and what he made when he came out of the wilds and hung out with Saxon Pope were different.
Your body warms it up.
But anyway, this is an arrow I shot. I shot and killed a deer with it, and I could never find the point. I looked and looked and looked and looked and looked, and I never found it. But I just left it the way it was.
Where was it? Oh,
Okay, that arrow's retired. Yeah, for real.
I didn't know where we were going. And so
You know, it's funny because I had a
was a single parent,
funny
left
as
the
in
kids to their dad, and I
interesting.
ran off with Nick.
I had a shop teacher one time.
We're going to Camp
I was making a
Were you showing them up too?
no, I was sawing an atlatl out on a bandsaw. And he walked up and he said, "What the heck are you making?" And I got to try to explain to this teacher what an atlatl is.
Yeah, that's great.
I said, "Well, I'm making something that's called an atlatl spear thrower." He goes, or spear thrower. He goes, "Oh, you're making an atlatl." And I thought, "Oh my God, he knows what he's."
Arrow.
Yeah, I know. He knows what he's talking
way
about.
out of back road.
So,
Pulled off the road. And I said, "Where are we?"
so it turns out that he was from Utah and he had been friends with Larry Dean Olson.
Oh my.
And he told me about that book. So this is like 1970.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa.
In 72 I found out about all that.
Yeah.
Drop the pants in the middle of the road and have some
So,
So,
let's see here.
yeah.
Which is which? So he was the one that told me, so there's a book you really ought to get and read. And it was Theodora Krober.
It was hygienic.
Krober's wife wrote that book about
Oh my
Ishi.
goodness, what a bow.
All right. And I remember reading about, wow, wouldn't it be something to actually make a sinew back bow? Well, here all these years later, not only did I get to do that, I got to go to UC Berkeley, look at all this stuff, illustrate it for Bowyer Bible, and actually make, this is my guess at what Ishi's bow probably looked like. Now, Pope said after Ishi he would paint his bow, but he said you couldn't paint your bow till you'd maybe done something notable with it.
Right.
All right. And he said what he would do is it was either there were 3 transverse lines and 3 long wavy lines in either green or blue, which is interesting because those are the colors the Pitt River people who were neighbors to the Yanayahi used on their bows. So after I shot 2 deer with my Ishi bow, I thought, I think Ishi would consider it okay to paint the bow. So that's my Ishi bow, how I think. I really need to write an article on this, not a chest beating great white hunter thing, but an educational thing about, hey, I've tried this, it works.
Is it backstrap venison?
No, it's all sinew back. It's sinew back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Sinew from backstrap.
I generally don't use backstrap. It's kind of wiry. I really like leg sinew
Okay.
better.
You have to break it apart to do it then.
Oh, you got to pound it all up. Yeah.
That's juniper,
Yeah.
Rocky Mountain juniper.
It's juniper. I wish I remembered where I cut it. It's somewhere from this country.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you heat bent it too?
A little bit, yeah.
You would turn over. Well, then the other person had to turn over.
But yeah, I've been able to get a couple deer with it. I know I hit another one and I could
What
never.
pound do you think it is?
It is exactly 42 pounds at a 22-inch draw. So
Yeah, that's
Short draw bow.
um,
Yeah.
So that was, I got a day and a half out of that.
Yeah.
Then I put the little green bottle.
That's
No.
a really short bow.
I'm glad I didn't drive off. Oh my goodness.
well, I was
Look
looking
at
at
that beauty.
Is that
This
a
is
Pitt
an
River or?
exact copy of a bow that came out of the Yurok village of Wichipek, right where the Trinity and Klamath rivers run together. So there were 2 bow makers down there, and one of them, that's a whole nother story I won't bore you with, but this is an exact copy of one of those bow makers' bows. That's exactly how I painted it.
Wow.
Sinew back, kind of an orange paint with a blue design, and he used that design and some others. And Billy and I have nicknamed them Mr. Wichipek #1 and Mr. Wichipek #2 because they're very, very distinct, and they keep showing up in museum collections and private collections to the point where it's like it's the same guy. That there were some specialists down there who were making bows. That's what they did. So this is a copy of one of those guys' bows. So if you want to know, all those Northern California arrows went with this kind of bow.
Wow.
But these were traded around too. I think this- No, this would have come right off the mouth of the Columbia.
Oh,
It's lower river.
wow.
I said, I can tell you exactly what it is. I said, I've seen those before. I said, it's off the lower Columbia, maybe southwest Washington. It's exactly what the Chinooks and Clatsop were using and making. These lines were probably burned in and then penciled in.
That's an original?
Yes. And
Look at that flop. Look at that
Yeah,
knot.
yeah.
But look at how wide this is. That's
Yeah.
that just doesn't seem
probably
like it fits your hand. But
Inch and
It's just a
well,
Is it
5/8.
it's different. They were probably shooting like this.
Yeah, they have a weird
Had
grip.
different ways of shooting. We,
Yeah.
we do the English longbow to the ear thing. They didn't shoot like that. But that is an original Chinook bow. or Chinook, and you would find that up into Washington too. And
So
probably
what year do you think this might have really been?
it could have been late 1800s,
Yeah.
somewhere in there, maybe even earlier. A lot of time. What's interesting about yew is it darkens down with time. Some of the very
Picks
very
up the
old.
grease and stuff.
Well, it just oxidizes. You know how Osage orange, you cut it and it's as yellow as that, and then in 5 years it's kind of an orangey brown.
Wow.
It patinas.
So-
And yew does that. So really old bows that I've seen that are dated to like around the time of the gold rush, 1850s. Those yew bows will be the color of a dark Hershey chocolate bar.
Wow.
Really dark. And it depends, of course, where they were restored, but I would guess that one's late 1800s.
What's
somewhere.
interesting too is the sapwood. I mean, they've shaved it down.
Yeah,
It's
but they
not
left
the
a little
original
bit.
layer,
There's a little
but
bit
it's
of
a little
sap
bit
in
to
this.
it.
Tiny bit.
Which is you see that on the original California sinew-back bows. They get us a little sapling about like that.
Just decrowning it, basically, right? Yeah.
Hand that back for.
And you can handle that decrowning pretty well.
Well, it's not that hard, I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the main thing is just keep going gently with it and don't try to bend the bow too much where it'll overbend in one spot before it's really ready to bend.
That's the summary of bow making right there.
Let's see.
Don't bend it too much in one spot. Words
Yeah.
of wisdom from Steve
Yeah.
Allen.
Oh,
The Bowyer's Bible's summed up in one sentence.
Don't overbend it. This is
There
a
you
copy
go.
of a. Okay, that's a copy of an original Pitt River Shasta bow. It's
I
yew,
keep putting my camera on.
but that's what those look like. These
I
bows.
just haven't stopped rolling the whole time.
Put that one in the sunshine the whole way.
And that's the design that was on the old bow. These bows were traded clear down from Northern California. A lot of the Paiutes and Modocs and Klamaths had these. And you'll see there's one in the Field Museum. It's attributed to Klamath, but it's one of these. There's a Pitt River bow at the U of O that says Modoc bow, Lakeview, Oregon, but it's a Pitt River bow. When Dr. Stern was still alive, he was one of the people on staff there. He's a really good anthropologist. I was over there researching something, and I had one of my bows just laying there. And he looked like one of the professors out of a Far Side cartoon. He's this tweedy little guy, always wore a bow tie, little speckled glasses, the pencil line mustache, classic 1940s, like Luther Cressman had. And always had a little lab jacket on. And he came walking through, and he looked over and he saw those bows laying there, and he just lit up. And all of a sudden he starts talking. He goes, "Oh, that's a Pitt River bow." And I just stood there and sucked up what he said.
Right.
He said those bows were really popular, and he said, in fact, they were traded clear up the east side of the Cascades all the way to the Dalles. Okay, and it so happens that a friend of mine has one that he bought from a Nez Perce family way up the Columbia River that had been in the family for generations, several generations. It was an old bow from the 1800s, and it was one of these. So it went clear up the river, probably got bought or won or lost in a hand game, and
Or a few
went up
wives,
the river,
something
and a Nez Perce family owned it. So Dr. Stern was right. I mean, they really got around. So let's see. That's a quiver that is. It's actually made out of marten. That's normally California quivers. They left the first side in. On the marten hides, they a lot of times left them out, and that's a copy of one from UC Berkeley. Because the marten fur is so pretty, they had a big patch of sewed in.
I
and
like the
they're-
fur in because it's going to be super quiet
Yeah.
and they're not rattling.
Yeah, so that's one of my quivers.
That's cool.
And then they would tie red stroud around the legs. I don't know why, but they did. So that's a copy of what some of the good California. I have way more at home, but there's only so much room.
Well, thanks for bringing all this. That's a treat.
Yeah.
That Columbia River bow is.
That's
so
Oh,
nice.
look at that too.
Now this is what did Paiute bows look like? I think from here.
Flicker feather.
I just happened to pick that up, tuck it in there when I was out hunting with Billy. We were trying to shoot rabbits with that. I made that one out of a limb. And that is
Oh, wow.
a springy.
Juniper.
What?
Yeah, it's juniper. That is a springy, snappy little bow.
So
that's how
you're beating the leg tendon, and
Yeah.
then you're using other melted tendon with it as glue.
Well, I've used commercial hide glue. You
Okay,
mix
hide
it up
glue,
and
yeah.
meld it. And, I mean, you can make it out of hide shavings and all that,
Mhm.
the old hard way. But, so, what did their bows from here look like? Probably like that.
That's
And they
what I'm
weren't
thinking,
great
too.
big, long, you know, because they were in little lines, like shooting from here to the, you know, to the chairs.
Yeah, get that arrow out there and kill something.
And you know, you're using little light cane arrows. Like when I was, Billy and I were trying to get, we don't have it quite done yet, but it will be. But I made a whole set of arrows that went with that bow, and I was really fussy to get them really straight and matched well and all that. And that is all green from out near Juntura, and then there's a red at Buchanan. And so I made a bunch of these to kind of all match up. This one I did make out of.
Are you steaming this in a pipe, or how are you steaming?
You can just boil it, or I've got one of those steamers. I just got a piece of duct and one of those steamers you pour water in.
Like a wallpaper steamer.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's what a lot of people use.
Those are really handy. And I've done it with the boiling and the radiator hose coming off the teapot.
Kettle, yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's so much easier. Just plug it in and
What a treat.
so anyway, so if people want to know what Paiute bows look like, and if you see pictures of some of these old Paiutes, you know, they're standing there holding a bow that's
Yeah, they're short.
they're not very long,
Short,
but they
wide,
didn't
thin.
shoot them like this. You know, like that.
Very
Anyway.
cool.
What a treat.
So that your brain's probably full. So.
Yeah, way past the first arrow. Yeah.
I just does not want
I
to.
didn't catch that one.
Well,
All right. They're made to be knocked around.
I need to be knocked around. So.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
All right, got a lot to think about.
Gold.
Yeah, I'll give you something to think about on the drive home. Huh?
Yes.